Fact 1. The millet system. The millet system was a unique and complex framework employed by the Ottoman Empire to manage its diverse religious communities. Rather than imposing a uniform legal or administrative structure, the Ottomans allowed certain religious groups to govern themselves according to their own laws and customs, particularly in matters of personal status, such as marriage, divorce, and inheritance. While the millet system is often lauded as a model of religious tolerance, it also had its limitations and drawbacks. To truly understand its significance, we must examine its origins, its structure, the specific rights and responsibilities it conferred on different religious groups, its impact on Ottoman society, and the factors that ultimately led to its decline. The origins of the millet system can be traced back to the early centuries of the Ottoman Empire. As the empire expanded and incorporated diverse populations with different religious beliefs, the Ottomans recognized the need for a system that would allow these groups to maintain their own religious and cultural identities while still remaining loyal subjects of the Sultan. The millet system emerged as a pragmatic solution to this challenge, allowing the Ottomans to govern a vast and diverse empire without resorting to forced conversions or religious persecution. The structure of the millet system was based on the concept of religious autonomy. Each recognized religious group, or millet, was granted a degree of self-governance under the leadership of its own religious leader, typically a patriarch, rabbi, or other high-ranking cleric. These religious leaders were responsible for administering the internal affairs of their respective millets, including managing religious institutions, overseeing education, and enforcing religious laws in matters of personal status. The most prominent millets in the Ottoman Empire were the Greek Orthodox millet, the Armenian Apostolic millet, and the Jewish millet. Other smaller religious groups, such as Catholics, Protestants, and various Eastern Christian denominations, were also recognized as millets, although their level of autonomy varied. The millet system conferred certain rights and responsibilities on the members of each recognized religious group. They were allowed to practice their religion freely, maintain their own religious institutions, and educate their children in their own language and culture. They were also subject to their own religious laws in matters of personal status, which were adjudicated by their own religious courts. However, the millet system also had its limitations. Non-Muslims were generally subject to certain legal and social disabilities. They were required to pay a special tax, known as the jizya, which was levied on non-Muslim males in lieu of military service. They were also subject to certain restrictions on their dress, housing, and public behavior. Non-Muslims were generally not allowed to hold high-ranking positions in the Ottoman government or military. The millet system had a profound impact on Ottoman society. It allowed for a degree of religious pluralism and coexistence, enabling different religious groups to live together peacefully within the empire. However, it also reinforced religious divisions and created a sense of social hierarchy, with Muslims generally enjoying a privileged status compared to non-Muslims. The millet system also played a role in the development of ethnic and national identities within the Ottoman Empire. As religious groups were allowed to maintain their own cultural and linguistic traditions, they gradually developed a sense of distinct identity that transcended religious affiliation. This contributed to the rise of nationalist movements in the Balkans and other parts of the Ottoman Empire in the 19th and 20th centuries. Over time, the millet system began to decline. Several factors contributed to this decline, including the rise of nationalism, the increasing Western influence in the Ottoman Empire, and the growing calls for equality and secularism. In the 19th century, the Ottoman government introduced a series of reforms aimed at modernizing the empire and promoting equality among all citizens. These reforms, known as the Tanzimat, gradually eroded the autonomy of the millets and integrated them more fully into the Ottoman state. The millet system was formally abolished in the early 20th century, following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. However, its legacy continues to be felt in many parts of the former Ottoman world. The system left a lasting impact on the relations between different religious groups, the development of ethnic and national identities, and the ongoing debates about religious freedom and secularism. The millet system represents a complex and often contradictory aspect of Ottoman history. While it allowed for a degree of religious tolerance and self-governance, it also perpetuated social inequalities and contributed to the rise of nationalism. Its legacy serves as a reminder of the challenges of managing religious diversity and the enduring tension between pluralism and social cohesion. The echoes of the millet system can still be heard today in the ongoing debates about the role of religion in public life and the rights of religious minorities in many parts of the world. It's a historical case study in the complexities of governing a diverse population, a balancing act between autonomy and integration, and the long-term consequences of policies designed to manage difference. Fact 2. The Siege of Vienna. The Siege of Vienna in 1683 represents a watershed moment in European and Ottoman history. It marked the culmination of centuries of conflict between the two powers, and its outcome had profound consequences for the balance of power in Europe and the trajectory of the Ottoman Empire. More than just a military engagement, the siege was a clash of civilizations, a test of wills, and a demonstration of the changing fortunes of two empires. To truly understand its significance, we must examine the historical context that led to the siege, the key figures who played a role, the events that unfolded during the siege itself, the reasons for the Ottoman defeat, and the long-term consequences of this pivotal battle. The historical context leading up to the Siege of Vienna was shaped by centuries of Ottoman expansion into Europe. Beginning in the 14th century, the Ottomans had gradually conquered vast territories in the Balkans and Eastern Europe, pushing their borders ever closer to the heart of Christendom. The Habsburg Empire, centered in Vienna, stood as the primary bulwark against Ottoman expansion, and the two powers engaged in numerous wars and skirmishes over the centuries. By the late 17th century, the Ottoman Empire, while still a formidable power, was beginning to show signs of strain. Internal conflicts, economic problems, and a series of military setbacks had weakened the empire's grip on its vast territories. However, the Ottomans still possessed a powerful army and a burning desire to expand their influence in Europe. In 1683, Sultan Mehmed IV, encouraged by his ambitious Grand Vizier, Kerem Mustafa Pasha, decided to launch a major offensive against Vienna. The stated goal was to secure Ottoman control over Hungary and potentially conquer Vienna itself, opening the way for further expansion into Europe. Kerem Mustafa Pasha led a massive Ottoman army, estimated to be between 100,000 and 300,000 soldiers, towards Vienna in the spring of 1683. The Ottoman army included janissaries, Sipahis, cavalry, and soldiers from various vassal states and allied territories. They brought with them a vast array of siege equipment, including cannons, mortars, and mines. As the Ottoman army approached Vienna, the city's defenses were in a state of disrepair. The city walls were old and vulnerable, and the garrison was relatively small, consisting of only about 15,000 soldiers. However, the Viennese citizens, led by their resolute mayor Ernst Rudiger Graf von Starhemberg, were determined to defend their city to the death. The siege of Vienna began on July 14, 1683. The Ottoman army surrounded the city and began bombarding it with cannons. The Viennese defenders put up a fierce resistance, repelling numerous Ottoman assaults and inflicting heavy casualties on the besiegers. As the siege dragged on, conditions inside Vienna deteriorated. Food and water became scarce, and disease began to spread. The defenders were running low on ammunition and morale. However, they continued to hold out, hoping for the arrival of reinforcements. Meanwhile, Emperor Leopold I of the Habsburg Empire had appealed to other European powers for assistance. His pleas were answered by King John III Sobieski of Poland, who agreed to lead a Polish army to Vienna's rescue. John III Sobieski, a renowned military commander, gathered a Polish army of around 25,000 soldiers and marched towards Vienna. He was joined by troops from other European states, including Bavaria, Saxony, and the Holy Roman Empire. On September 12, 1683, the combined Polish-German-Austrian army, led by John III Sobieski, arrived at Vienna and launched a surprise attack on the Ottoman besiegers. The Ottoman army, exhausted and demoralized by the long siege, was caught off guard. The Battle of Vienna was a decisive victory for the Christian forces. The Polish cavalry, led by John III Sobieski himself, charged down the slopes of the Kahlenberg mountain and shattered the Ottoman lines. The Ottoman army was routed, and Kara Mustafa Pasha was forced to flee in disgrace. The reasons for the Ottoman defeat at the Siege of Vienna were multifaceted. One factor was the logistical challenges of supplying such a large army so far from its base of operations. The Ottoman army was plagued by shortages of food, water, and ammunition. Another factor was the poor coordination between the various units of the Ottoman army. The Ottoman command structure was decentralized, and there was often a lack of communication and cooperation between different commanders. The arrival of the Polish army and the leadership of John III Sobieski were also crucial factors in the Ottoman defeat. The Polish cavalry was renowned for its skill and bravery, and John III Sobieski was a brilliant military strategist. The Siege of Vienna had profound, long-term consequences. It marked the end of Ottoman expansion into Europe and the beginning of a period of decline for the Ottoman Empire. The Habsburg Empire, on the other hand, emerged from the siege stronger than ever, becoming a dominant power in Central Europe. The Battle of Vienna also had a significant impact on European culture and identity. It was celebrated as a victory for Christendom over Islam, and it helped to solidify the sense of European unity and identity. The Siege of Vienna remains a powerful symbol of the clash between civilizations and the turning tide of history. It is a reminder of the courage and resilience of the Viennese people, the military genius of John III Sobieski, and the enduring legacy of a battle that shaped the course of European history. The image of the Polish hussars charging down the Kahlenberg remains etched in the collective memory of Europe, a symbol of defiance against the Ottoman threat and the triumph of Christian arms. Fact 3. Ottoman social life and customs. The Ottoman Empire, with its vast territories and diverse populations, possessed a rich and vibrant social life, shaped by a unique blend of Islamic traditions, Turkish customs, and influences from the various cultures within its borders. Ottoman social life was characterized by a strong emphasis on family, community, and hospitality. Daily life revolved around religious observances, social gatherings, and traditional customs. To truly understand the fabric of Ottoman society, we must examine the roles of family and gender, the importance of religious institutions, the popular pastimes and entertainment, the unique customs and traditions, and the ways in which social life changed over time. Family was the cornerstone of Ottoman society. The family unit was typically extended, with multiple generations living together under one roof. The father was the head of the household, responsible for providing for his family and making important decisions. The mother was responsible for managing the household and raising the children. Children were highly valued in Ottoman society. They were seen as a blessing from God and were raised with great care and attention. Boys were typically educated in Islamic schools, while girls were educated at home, learning skills such as sewing, cooking, and managing a household. Gender roles were clearly defined in Ottoman society. Men were expected to work outside the home and participate in public life, while women were primarily responsible for domestic duties and raising children. However, women were not entirely excluded from public life. They could own property, conduct business, and participate in religious activities. Religious institutions played a central role in Ottoman social life. Mosques were not only places of worship, but also centers of community life. They hosted religious ceremonies, provided education, and served as meeting places for people from all walks of life. Sufi lodges, known as teks or zawiyas, were also important centers of religious and social activity. Religious festivals and holidays were major events in Ottoman society. Ramadan, the month of fasting, was a time of intense religious devotion and community solidarity. Eid al-Fitr, the festival that marks the end of Ramadan, was a time of feasting, celebration, and gift-giving. Popular pastimes and entertainment in the Ottoman Empire included coffee houses, hammams, bathhouses, storytelling, music, and games. Coffee houses, as discussed earlier, were important social centers where men gathered to drink coffee, smoke tobacco, discuss politics, and play games such as backgammon and chess. Hammams were public bathhouses that served as important social gathering places for both men and women. They provided a place to cleanse the body, relax the mind, and socialize with friends and neighbors. Storytelling was a popular form of entertainment in the Ottoman Empire. Professional storytellers, known as metas, would travel from town to town, reciting epic tales, historical narratives, and humorous anecdotes. Music and dance were also important parts of Ottoman social life. Ottoman music was characterized by its intricate melodies, complex rhythms, and use of traditional instruments such as the oud, the canon, and the ney. Ottoman customs and traditions were diverse and varied, reflecting the influence of different cultures and religions within the empire. Hospitality was highly valued, and guests were treated with great respect and generosity. Other important customs included gift giving, visiting relatives, and celebrating life cycle events such as births, weddings, and funerals. Ottoman cuisine was rich and flavorful, reflecting the influence of Turkish, Arabic, Persian, and Balkan culinary traditions. Ottoman social life changed over time, influenced by factors such as urbanization, westernization, and political reforms. The rise of new technologies, such as printing presses and newspapers, led to the spread of new ideas and information. The Tanzimat reforms of the 19th century introduced Western-style laws and institutions, which had a profound impact on Ottoman society. Despite these changes, many traditional Ottoman customs and values persisted. The emphasis on family, community, and hospitality remained strong, and religious institutions continued to play a central role in social life. The Ottoman Empire's legacy of social life and customs continues to be felt today in Turkey and other parts of the former Ottoman world. The aroma of Turkish coffee, the sounds of Ottoman music, and the warmth of Ottoman hospitality all serve as a reminder of the rich and vibrant social tapestry of the Ottoman Empire. It's a reminder that empires are not just about rulers and battles, but also about the everyday lives of ordinary people, their customs, their beliefs, and their connections to one another. The laughter in coffee houses, the steam in hammams, and the stories passed down through generations all contribute to the enduring legacy of Ottoman social life. Fact 4. Barbary Corsairs and Ottoman patronage. The Barbary Corsairs, operating from the North African coast, primarily modern-day Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, were a persistent and often brutal presence in the Mediterranean Sea for centuries. Their activities, characterized by raiding, piracy, and slave trading, had a profound impact on maritime commerce, coastal communities, and international relations. What makes this story particularly fascinating is the complex relationship between the Barbary Corsairs and the Ottoman Empire. While ostensibly independent, the Corsairs often received support, patronage, and even official sanction from the Ottoman state, creating a symbiotic dance of raiding and diplomacy that shaped the geopolitical landscape of the Mediterranean. To truly understand this intricate relationship, we must examine the origins of the Barbary Corsairs, their methods and motivations, the nature of Ottoman support, the impact of their activities, and the eventual decline of their power. The origins of the Barbary Corsairs can be traced back to the late medieval period, when Muslim refugees fleeing the Reconquista in Spain began to settle along the North African coast. These refugees, often skilled sailors and warriors, sought to avenge their expulsion from Spain by attacking Christian shipping and coastal settlements. Over time, they coalesced into a distinct group of seafarers known as the Barbary Corsairs. The term corsair itself distinguishes these pirates from common criminals. Corsairs operated with the tacit or explicit approval of a state, receiving a letter of marque that authorized them to attack enemy ships in times of war. This distinction was crucial as it provided the corsairs with a degree of legitimacy and protection under international law, or what passed for it at the time. The methods employed by the Barbary corsairs were often brutal and ruthless. They would lie in wait for unsuspecting merchant ships, attack them with overwhelming force, and plunder their cargo. They would also raid coastal towns and villages, capturing slaves and demanding ransoms. The enslaved were either sold in North African markets or held for ransom. Many Europeans, particularly those from coastal regions of Italy, Spain, and France, lived in constant fear of being captured by the corsairs. The motivations of the Barbary corsairs were complex and varied. Some were driven by religious zeal, seeking to wage jihad against Christians and avenge the wrongs inflicted upon Muslims. Others were motivated by economic gain, seeking to amass wealth and power through piracy and slave trading. Still others were driven by a desire for adventure and glory, seeking to make a name for themselves as daring seafarers. The relationship between the Barbary corsairs and the Ottoman Empire was multifaceted and evolved over time. Initially, the Ottomans viewed the corsairs with suspicion and even hostility, fearing that their activities would disrupt Ottoman trade and provoke European retaliation. However, as the Ottoman Empire expanded its influence along the North African coast, it began to see the corsairs as a valuable asset. The Ottomans recognized that the corsairs could be used to harass European shipping, disrupt enemy trade routes, and weaken Christian naval power in the Mediterranean. They began to provide the corsairs with support, including arms, supplies, and safe harbor in Ottoman ports. In return, the corsairs recognized Ottoman sovereignty and pledged to support Ottoman interests in the region. The Ottoman Empire also appointed governors, known as beys or pashas, to rule over the Barbary states, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli. These governors often worked closely with the corsairs, coordinating their activities and ensuring that they remained loyal to the Ottoman state. One of the most famous Barbary corsairs was Hayreddin Barbarossa, who rose to become the admiral of the Ottoman fleet in the 16th century. Barbarossa was a brilliant naval commander who led numerous successful campaigns against European powers. He played a key role in establishing Ottoman dominance in the Mediterranean. The activities of the Barbary corsairs had a significant impact on the Mediterranean world. They disrupted maritime trade, caused widespread fear and insecurity, and fueled tensions between Christian and Muslim powers. They also contributed to the development of sophisticated naval defenses and the rise of privateering in Europe. Over time, the power of the Barbary corsairs began to decline. European navies grew stronger and more assertive, and they began to actively suppress corsair activities. The rise of nation-states in Europe also led to a decline in the legitimacy of privateering, as states sought to monopolize the use of force. In the 19th century, European powers launched a series of military expeditions against the Barbary states, culminating in the French conquest of Algeria in 1830. The Barbary corsairs were gradually suppressed, and their reign of terror in the Mediterranean came to an end. The legacy of the Barbary corsairs remains a complex and controversial one. They are remembered by some as daring seafarers who defended Muslim interests against Christian aggression. They are remembered by others as ruthless pirates who terrorized the Mediterranean and enslaved countless people. Their story serves as a reminder of the complex and often brutal realities of maritime warfare, the enduring tensions between civilizations, and the symbiotic relationship between states and non-state actors. The echoes of their cannon fire, the cries of their victims, and the legends of their exploits continue to resonate in the historical memory of the Mediterranean. It's a reminder that the lines between piracy and patriotism can be blurred, and that the pursuit of power often leads to morally ambiguous choices. Fact 5. The Tulip Era. The Tulip Era, or Leil Devri in Turkish, spanning from roughly 1718 to 1730, represents a fascinating and often overlooked period in Ottoman history. It was a time of unprecedented peace, prosperity, and a dramatic shift in cultural priorities, marked by a fervent embrace of European influences and, as the name suggests, an almost obsessive fascination with tulips. To truly understand the significance of this era, we must delve into the context that birthed it, the key figures who shaped it, the cultural and societal changes it wrought, and ultimately, the reasons for its abrupt and violent demise. Following the Treaty of Passarowitz in 1718, which ended a series of wars with Austria and Venice, the Ottoman Empire entered a period of relative calm. Sultan Ahmed III, a ruler with a penchant for the arts and a genuine desire to modernize his realm, seized this opportunity to usher in a new era. He recognized that the empire, once a dominant force in the world, had begun to lag behind Europe in terms of technology, military organization, and overall societal development. Determined to reverse this trend, he looked westward for inspiration. One of the key figures in this transformation was Grand Vizier Damat Ibrahim Pasha, a shrewd and capable statesman who shared the Sultan's vision for a modernized Ottoman Empire. Ibrahim Pasha played a pivotal role in fostering diplomatic ties with European powers, sending ambassadors to various courts and encouraging the exchange of ideas and knowledge. He also spearheaded a series of ambitious reforms aimed at improving the empire's infrastructure, economy, and military. The Tulip Era witnessed a flourishing of the arts and sciences. New printing presses were established, allowing for the wider dissemination of knowledge and literature. Libraries were expanded, and scholars were encouraged to translate European works into Turkish. Ottoman artists and craftsmen began to incorporate European styles and techniques into their work, resulting in a unique blend of Eastern and Western aesthetics. This fusion was particularly evident in architecture, with new palaces and gardens built in a style that combined traditional Ottoman designs with Baroque and Rococo elements. However, it was the tulip that became the defining symbol of the era. These exotic flowers, imported from the Netherlands, quickly captured the imagination of the Ottoman elite. Tulip bulbs became incredibly valuable, with rare varieties fetching exorbitant prices. Tulip gardens sprang up across Istanbul, becoming the setting for lavish parties and social gatherings. The tulip became a symbol of wealth, status, and refined taste, and its image adorned everything from ceramics and textiles to poetry and paintings. The Tulip Era was not without its critics. Many conservative elements within Ottoman society viewed the embrace of European influences with suspicion and resentment. They accused the ruling elite of abandoning traditional Ottoman values and indulging in frivolous pursuits at the expense of the empire's strength and stability. The extravagant spending on tulips and lavish festivities further fueled their discontent, particularly at a time when many ordinary people were struggling to make ends meet. The seeds of the tulip era's demise were sown in the very extravagance that defined it. The rising cost of living, coupled with a perceived lack of attention to the needs of the common people, led to growing unrest. In 1730, a rebellion broke out in Istanbul, led by a charismatic Albanian named Patrona Halil. This rebellion, fueled by popular discontent and religious fervor, quickly gained momentum, threatening the very foundations of the Ottoman state. The rebels, who were largely composed of unemployed workers, disgruntled soldiers, and religious fanatics, demanded the overthrow of Sultan Ahmed III and the execution of Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha. The Sultan, realizing that his position was untenable, agreed to sacrifice his Grand Vizier in an attempt to appease the rebels. Ibrahim Pasha was brutally murdered, and his body was paraded through the streets of Istanbul. The rebellion continued, however, and eventually Sultan Ahmed III was forced to abdicate in favor of his nephew, Mahmud I. The Tulip era was officially over, replaced by a period of renewed conservatism and a return to traditional Ottoman values. Patrona Halil, initially hailed as a hero, was eventually assassinated as the new sultan sought to restore order and consolidate his power. The Tulip era, though relatively short-lived, left a lasting impact on Ottoman society. It marked a period of significant cultural exchange and modernization, paving the way for future reforms. However, it also highlighted the dangers of unchecked extravagance and the importance of addressing the needs of the common people. The story of the Tulip era serves as a cautionary tale about the delicate balance between progress and tradition, and the potential consequences of ignoring the voices of dissent. The legacy of the Tulip era can still be seen today in Istanbul's architecture, art, and cultural institutions, reminding us of a time when the Ottoman Empire dared to embrace the new and challenge the old. The beauty and fragility of the tulip, so closely associated with this era, serves as a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of power and the enduring power of cultural change. It's a reminder that even the most beautiful blooms can wither if their roots are not nourished and protected. Fact 6. Ottoman science and technology. The Ottoman Empire, often remembered for its military prowess and vast territorial expanse, also possessed a rich and vibrant tradition of scientific and technological innovation. While European advancements during the Renaissance and Enlightenment often take center stage in historical narratives, the Ottomans made significant contributions to various fields, including astronomy, mathematics, medicine, cartography, and engineering. To understand the true scope of Ottoman science and technology, we must move beyond Eurocentric perspectives and explore the intellectual foundations of Ottoman science, the key figures who drove innovation, the specific advancements they made, and the reasons why Ottoman scientific development eventually lagged behind that of Europe. The intellectual foundations of Ottoman science were rooted in the Islamic Golden Age, a period of remarkable scientific and intellectual flourishing that occurred in the Arab world between the 8th and 13th centuries. Ottoman scholars drew heavily on the works of classical Greek scientists and philosophers, as well as the contributions of Muslim scientists such as Ibn Sina, Avicenna, Al-Khwarizmi, and Al-Biruni. They translated these works into Arabic and Turkish, preserving them for posterity and building upon them with their own original research. The Ottomans also benefited from their geographical location at the crossroads of East and West. They were able to acquire knowledge and technologies from both Europe and Asia, integrating them into their own scientific and technological practices. This cultural exchange played a crucial role in stimulating innovation and progress. One of the most important fields of Ottoman science was astronomy. Ottoman astronomers built observatories in major cities such as Istanbul and Bursa, equipped with sophisticated instruments for observing the stars and planets. They made accurate astronomical observations, developed new astronomical tables, and contributed to the understanding of celestial mechanics. One notable Ottoman astronomer was Taqi al-Din, who built a large observatory in Istanbul in the late 16th century. Taqi al-Din made significant improvements to astronomical instruments and developed a mechanical clock that was more accurate than any existing European clock at the time. Mathematics was another area in which Ottoman scholars excelled. They made significant contributions to algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. Ottoman mathematicians developed new methods for solving equations, calculating areas and volumes, and constructing geometric figures. They also made important advances in the field of optics, studying the properties of light and developing new lenses for telescopes and other instruments. Medicine was highly valued in Ottoman society, and Ottoman physicians made significant contributions to the field. They established hospitals and medical schools where they trained doctors and conducted research. Ottoman physicians were skilled in diagnosis, surgery, and pharmacology. They wrote numerous medical treatises, which were translated into other languages and used as textbooks in Europe. One of the most famous Ottoman physicians was Seyfeddin Sabunkoglu, who wrote a detailed illustrated surgical atlas in the 15th century. Cartography, the science of map-making, was also an important field in the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman cartographers produced detailed maps of the Ottoman territories and surrounding regions. These maps were used for military planning, trade, and administration. One notable Ottoman cartographer was Piri Reis, who created a world map in the early 16th century that incorporated knowledge from both European and Islamic sources. Engineering was another area in which the Ottomans excelled. Ottoman engineers built impressive structures, including mosques, bridges, aqueducts, and fortifications. They were skilled in hydraulics, developing sophisticated water management systems for supplying water to cities and irrigating agricultural land. The Süleymaniyye Mosque in Istanbul, designed by the renowned Ottoman architect Mimar Sinan, is a testament to the engineering prowess of the Ottomans. Despite their significant contributions to science and technology, the Ottomans eventually fell behind Europe in terms of scientific development. Several factors contributed to this decline. One factor was the increasing conservatism of Ottoman society, which led to a decline in intellectual curiosity and a reluctance to embrace new ideas. Another factor was the lack of institutional support for scientific research. Ottoman scientists often relied on the patronage of wealthy individuals or the state, but there was no systematic funding for scientific research. The Ottomans also failed to fully embrace the scientific revolution that was taking place in Europe. They were slow to adopt the new scientific methods and theories that were being developed by European scientists such as Nicholas Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, and Isaac Newton. This failure to keep pace with European scientific advancements ultimately led to a decline in Ottoman scientific and technological competitiveness. Despite this eventual decline, the Ottoman Empire's contributions to science and technology should not be overlooked. The Ottomans preserved and built upon the scientific knowledge of previous civilizations, made significant advancements in various fields, and played a role in transmitting knowledge and technologies to Europe. Their legacy serves as a reminder that scientific innovation is not limited to any one culture or region, and that the contributions of all civilizations should be recognized and celebrated. The intricate designs of Ottoman astronomical instruments, the detailed illustrations in Ottoman medical treatises, and the majestic structures built by Ottoman engineers are all testaments to the ingenuity and creativity of the Ottoman people. Fact 7. Ottoman intelligence. The Ottoman Empire, like any successful long-lasting state, relied heavily on a sophisticated system of intelligence gathering to protect its interests, anticipate threats, and maintain its power. While often overlooked in popular narratives, Ottoman intelligence operations were crucial for the empire's expansion, its diplomatic maneuvering, and its ability to suppress internal dissent. To truly understand the scope and significance of Ottoman intelligence, we must examine its organization, the methods it employed, the key figures who directed its operations, some notable examples of its successes and failures, and its overall impact on the course of Ottoman history. The organization of Ottoman intelligence was complex and multifaceted, involving various branches and agencies. At the highest level, intelligence operations were overseen by the Sultan himself and his close advisors, particularly the Grand Vizier. Below them, various departments and officials were responsible for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating intelligence. One of the most important sources of intelligence was the Ottoman diplomatic corps. Ottoman ambassadors and envoys stationed in foreign courts were expected to gather information about the political, military, and economic affairs of their host countries. They cultivated relationships with local officials, merchants, and other individuals who could provide valuable intelligence. Another key source of intelligence was the Ottoman military. Ottoman commanders were responsible for gathering intelligence about enemy forces, fortifications, and terrain. They employed scouts, spies, and informants to gather information about enemy movements and intentions. The Ottoman government also maintained a network of spies and informants within its own territories. These individuals were tasked with monitoring public opinion, identifying potential dissidents, and uncovering plots against the state. They operated in disguise, often posing as merchants, travelers, or religious pilgrims. The methods employed by Ottoman intelligence agents were diverse and sophisticated. They used a variety of techniques to gather information, including espionage, surveillance, bribery, and deception. They also relied on cryptography to protect the confidentiality of their communications. Espionage was a key element of Ottoman intelligence operations. Ottoman spies were often sent to foreign countries to gather information about military secrets, technological advancements, and political intrigues. They would infiltrate enemy organizations, cultivate relationships with key individuals, and steal documents or equipment. Surveillance was another important technique used by Ottoman intelligence agents. They would monitor the activities of suspected dissidents, foreign diplomats, and other individuals who were deemed to be a threat to the state. They would track their movements, intercept their communications, and gather evidence of their activities. Bribery was often used to obtain information from corrupt officials, disgruntled employees, or other individuals who had access to valuable intelligence. Ottoman intelligence agents would offer money, favors, or promises of protection in exchange for information. Deception was a key element of Ottoman intelligence strategy. Ottoman agents would often use misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda to mislead their enemies and manipulate public opinion. They would spread false rumors, plant fake documents, and orchestrate elaborate hoaxes. Several key figures played important roles in directing Ottoman intelligence operations. One notable figure was Mahmud Silaleddin Pasha, who served as Grand Vizier under Sultan Abdul Hamid II in the late 19th century. Mahmud Silaleddin Pasha was a skilled diplomat and intelligence officer who oversaw a vast network of spies and informants. He was known for his ruthless efficiency and his willingness to use any means necessary to protect the interests of the Ottoman Empire. Another important figure was Ahmed Sevdet Pasha, who served as Minister of Justice and Minister of Education in the mid-19th century. Ahmed Sevdet Pasha was a scholar and historian who also played a key role in Ottoman intelligence operations. He was responsible for gathering information about nationalist movements in the Balkans and developing strategies for suppressing them. The Ottoman intelligence system achieved both notable successes and suffered significant failures. One notable success was the Ottoman victory at the Battle of Calderon in 1514. Ottoman intelligence agents had gathered detailed information about the Safavid army, including its size, composition, and tactics. This information allowed the Ottomans to plan their attack effectively and achieve a decisive victory. However, Ottoman intelligence also suffered some notable failures. One such failure was the Ottoman invasion of Malta in 1565. Ottoman intelligence agents had underestimated the strength of the Maltese defenses and failed to anticipate the arrival of Spanish reinforcements. The Ottoman invasion was ultimately repulsed, resulting in a significant setback for the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman intelligence system had a significant impact on the course of Ottoman history. It allowed the Ottomans to expand their empire, defend their territories, and suppress internal dissent. However, it also contributed to the atmosphere of fear and suspicion that pervaded Ottoman society. The legacy of Ottoman intelligence continues to be debated today. Some historians argue that it was a necessary evil that allowed the Ottoman Empire to survive for centuries. Others condemn it as a tool of oppression and repression. Regardless of one's perspective, it is clear that Ottoman intelligence played a crucial role in shaping the history of the Ottoman Empire and the world. The shadows of Ottoman spies, the whispers of secret informants, and the intricate webs of deception all contributed to the rise and fall of one of history's most enduring empires. It's a reminder that the battle for information is as old as civilization itself, and that the secrets empires keep are often as important as the armies they wield. Fact 8. Coffee in the Ottoman Empire. Coffee, now a ubiquitous beverage enjoyed worldwide, has a fascinating and intricate history interwoven with the rise and evolution of the Ottoman Empire. More than just a drink, coffee played a pivotal role in shaping Ottoman social life, culture, economy, and even politics. From its introduction in the 16th century to its eventual acceptance and widespread adoption, coffee's journey within the Ottoman realm is a compelling story of cultural exchange, social transformation, and the enduring power of a simple bean. To fully appreciate this story, we must explore the origins of coffee, its arrival in the Ottoman lands, the initial resistance it faced, its eventual embrace by different segments of society, and the enduring legacy it left on Ottoman culture. The origins of coffee cultivation and consumption can be traced back to Ethiopia, where the coffee plant grew wild and its beans were used for various purposes, including medicinal and religious rituals. From Ethiopia, coffee spread to Yemen, where it was cultivated and consumed on a larger scale, primarily by Sufi mystics who used it to stay awake during their nocturnal prayers and meditations. It was in Yemen that coffee houses began to emerge as centers of social and intellectual life. The exact date of coffee's arrival in the Ottoman Empire is uncertain, but it is generally believed to have been introduced in the early 16th century, likely by merchants and pilgrims returning from Mecca. The first coffee houses in Istanbul, known as kahvehanes, began to appear around the middle of the 16th century. These establishments quickly became popular gathering places for men from all walks of life, including merchants, artisans, scholars, and government officials. However, the introduction of coffee was not without its challenges. Many conservative elements within Ottoman society viewed coffee with suspicion and disapproval. Some religious scholars argued that coffee was an intoxicant and therefore forbidden by Islamic law. Others worried that coffee houses were breeding grounds for sedition and political dissent. These concerns led to periodic crackdowns on coffee houses, with some being closed down and coffee consumption temporarily banned. Despite this initial resistance, coffee's popularity continued to grow. The Ottoman elite, including members of the imperial court, began to embrace coffee, recognizing its stimulating effects and its potential as a social lubricant. The Sultan himself, initially wary of coffee, eventually became a regular consumer, and coffee ceremonies became an integral part of court life. As coffee consumption spread, so did the number of coffee houses. By the 17th century, Istanbul was home to hundreds of kahvehanes, each with its own unique character and clientele. These coffee houses served not only coffee, but also other beverages, such as tea and sherbet, as well as providing a space for conversation, games, and entertainment. They became important centers of social and cultural exchange, where people from different backgrounds could come together to share ideas, discuss current events, and forge new connections. The kahvehanes also played a significant role in the dissemination of news and information. In the absence of formal newspapers, coffee houses served as unofficial news centers, where travelers and merchants would share stories and rumors from distant lands. Political debates and discussions were common, and coffee houses became important spaces for the formation of public opinion. The economic impact of coffee was also significant. The growing demand for coffee led to the development of a thriving coffee trade, with Ottoman merchants importing coffee beans from Yemen and other parts of the world. Coffee roasting and brewing became important industries, providing employment for many people. The Ottoman Empire also played a key role in introducing coffee to Europe, with Ottoman merchants and diplomats establishing coffee houses in major European cities. The role of women in Ottoman coffee culture is a complex and often overlooked aspect of this story. While coffee houses were primarily male spaces, women played a crucial role in the preparation and consumption of coffee within the home. Ottoman women were renowned for their skills in roasting, grinding, and brewing coffee, and coffee ceremonies were often an important part of social gatherings among women. Over time, coffee became deeply ingrained in Ottoman culture and identity. It was featured in poetry, literature, and art. Coffee sets, often elaborately decorated with intricate designs, became prized possessions. Coffee rituals and customs evolved, reflecting Ottoman values of hospitality, generosity, and social harmony. The legacy of coffee in the Ottoman Empire is still evident today. Turkish coffee, prepared in a traditional sez and served with foam, is a beloved national beverage. Coffee houses continue to thrive in Turkey and other parts of the former Ottoman Empire, serving as important social and cultural centers. The word coffee itself is derived from the Arabic word kawa, which was adopted into Turkish as kav and then spread to other languages around the world. The story of coffee in the Ottoman Empire is a testament to the transformative power of cultural exchange and the enduring influence of a simple beverage. It is a story of resistance and acceptance, of social transformation and economic opportunity, and of the enduring legacy of a drink that continues to shape our world. The aroma of Turkish coffee, wafting from a traditional kava hane, is a reminder of the rich and complex history of the Ottoman Empire and the enduring power of cultural traditions. Fact 9. Ottoman infrastructure. The Ottoman Empire, spanning vast distances and diverse terrains, required a robust and well-maintained infrastructure to connect its far-flung territories, facilitate trade, and ensure the movement of troops and supplies. While grand mosques and opulent palaces often capture the most attention, the Ottoman Empire invested significantly in more practical infrastructure, including roads, bridges, caravanserais, roadside inns, and water systems. These investments were essential for the empire's economic prosperity, military strength, and overall stability. To truly appreciate the importance of Ottoman infrastructure, we must examine the types of infrastructure projects undertaken, the methods of financing and construction, the impact on trade and communication, the challenges of maintaining this infrastructure, and the legacy it left behind. The Ottoman Empire inherited a legacy of infrastructure from previous civilizations, including the Roman and Byzantine empires. However, the Ottomans significantly expanded and improved upon this existing infrastructure, building new roads, bridges, and caravanserais to connect newly conquered territories and facilitate trade. Roads were a vital component of Ottoman infrastructure. The Ottomans constructed a network of roads that crisscrossed their empire, connecting major cities, towns, and military outposts. These roads were not always paved, but they were generally well maintained, with regular repairs and improvements. The Ottomans also built bridges over rivers and streams to facilitate travel and trade. Many of these bridges were constructed using advanced engineering techniques, such as arch construction, which allowed them to span wide distances. Caravanserais, also known as khans or hans, were roadside inns that provided shelter and supplies for travelers and merchants. These caravanserais were strategically located along major trade routes, typically about a day's journey apart. They provided a safe and secure place for travelers to rest, eat, and water their animals. Caravanserais also served as centers of trade and commerce, where merchants could buy and sell goods. The Ottomans also invested in water systems to supply their cities with clean water. They built aqueducts, reservoirs, and fountains to provide water for drinking, irrigation, and sanitation. Some of these water systems were incredibly complex and sophisticated, utilizing gravity and underground tunnels to transport water over long distances. The financing and construction of Ottoman infrastructure projects were typically undertaken by the state, although private individuals and charitable organizations also played a role. The state would allocate funds from the treasury to pay for the construction and maintenance of roads, bridges, and caravanserais. In some cases, the state would grant tax exemptions or other incentives to encourage private individuals to invest in infrastructure projects. The construction of Ottoman infrastructure projects often involved the use of skilled labor and specialized materials. Ottoman engineers and architects were highly skilled in their craft, and they employed a variety of innovative techniques to build durable and functional structures. They used materials such as stone, brick, wood, and mortar to construct roads, bridges, and caravanserais. The impact of Ottoman infrastructure on trade and communication was profound. The improved roads and caravanserais facilitated the movement of goods and people across the empire, leading to increased trade and economic prosperity. The efficient water systems provided clean water for cities, improving public health and sanitation. The well-maintained infrastructure also made it easier for the Ottoman army to move troops and supplies, enhancing the empire's military capabilities. However, maintaining Ottoman infrastructure was a constant challenge. The roads, bridges, and caravanserais were subject to wear and tear from heavy use and natural disasters. The water systems required regular maintenance to prevent leaks and blockages. The Ottoman government established a system of inspectors and repair crews to oversee the maintenance of infrastructure projects. They would regularly inspect the roads, bridges, and caravanserais and make necessary repairs. Despite these efforts, Ottoman infrastructure gradually declined over time. Internal conflicts, economic problems, and a lack of resources led to a decline in the quality of maintenance and repair. The rise of new technologies, such as railroads and steamships, also rendered some of the Ottoman infrastructure obsolete. The legacy of Ottoman infrastructure can still be seen today in many parts of the former Ottoman Empire. Many of the roads, bridges, and caravanserais built by the Ottomans are still in use. serving as a reminder of the empire's engineering prowess and its commitment to connecting its vast territories. The intricate water systems that supplied Ottoman cities with clean water continue to function, providing a valuable resource for modern populations. The Ottoman infrastructure serves as a testament to the importance of investing in long-term projects that benefit society as a whole. It's a reminder that empires are not just built on conquest and power, but also on the practical foundations of roads, bridges, and the ability to connect people and resources. The echoes of camel caravans, the footsteps of travelers, and the flow of water through ancient aqueducts all speak to the enduring legacy of Ottoman infrastructure. Fact 10. The harem beyond the myths. The Ottoman harem, often shrouded in mystery and sensationalized in popular culture, is perhaps one of the most misunderstood institutions of the Ottoman Empire. Far from being simply a place of sensual pleasure and idle luxury, the harem was a complex and multifaceted institution that played a significant role in Ottoman politics, society, and culture. To truly understand the harem, we must move beyond the stereotypes and explore its origins, its structure, its functions, the lives of the women who resided within its walls, and its eventual decline. The word harem itself comes from the Arabic word haram, meaning forbidden or sacred. In the Ottoman context, the harem referred to the private quarters of the Sultan and his family, a space strictly off-limits to all men except the Sultan himself, close male relatives, and eunuchs who served as guardians. The harem was not unique to the Ottoman Empire. Similar institutions existed in other Islamic societies and in various royal courts throughout history. The origins of the Ottoman harem can be traced back to the early centuries of the Ottoman Empire. As the empire expanded and consolidated its power, the sultans began to establish increasingly elaborate households, including separate quarters for their wives, concubines, and female relatives. The harem gradually evolved into a complex institution with its own hierarchy, rules, and customs. The structure of the harem was hierarchical, with the sultan's mother, known as the Valide Sultan, holding the highest position of authority. The Valide Sultan wielded considerable influence in Ottoman politics and often played a key role in advising her son on matters of state. Below the Valide Sultan were the Sultan's wives, with the Hasiki Sultan, or chief consort, holding the highest rank among them. The Hasiki Sultan was often the mother of the Sultan's heir and wielded considerable power and influence. Below the wives were the concubines, known as Kariyeler. These women were often of diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds, having been acquired as slaves or gifts from various parts of the Ottoman Empire and beyond. The Kariyeler were trained in various arts and skills, including music, dance, poetry, and embroidery, and were expected to entertain the Sultan and his family. Those who caught the Sultan's eye could rise in rank and become his concubines, potentially even becoming his wives. The harem was not just a place of residence for the Sultan's female relatives and concubines. It was also a center of education and culture. The women of the harem received instruction in a variety of subjects, including Islamic theology, literature, history, music, and dance. They were also taught how to manage a household and raise children. Some women in the harem became accomplished poets, musicians, and artists, leaving behind a legacy of creative achievement. The eunuchs played a crucial role in the harem, serving as guardians and administrators. Eunuchs were castrated men, often of African origin, who were considered to be trustworthy and loyal servants. They were responsible for maintaining order within the harem, enforcing its rules, and protecting the privacy of the women who resided there. The chief eunuch, known as the Kisler Aga, was a powerful figure who wielded considerable influence in Ottoman politics. The harem played a significant role in Ottoman politics. The women of the harem, particularly the Valide Sultan and the Haseki Sultan, often exerted considerable influence over the Sultan and his policies. They could lobby for their favorite officials, influence appointments, and even play a role in succession disputes. Some historians have argued that the harem was a key factor in the so-called Sultanate of Women, a period in Ottoman history during the 16th and 17th centuries when powerful female figures exerted significant political influence. The lives of the women in the harem were complex and varied. While some women undoubtedly enjoyed a life of luxury and privilege, others experienced loneliness, isolation, and a lack of freedom. The harem was a highly competitive environment, with women vying for the sultan's attention and favor. However, it was also a place of female solidarity and support, where women formed close bonds and shared their experiences. Over time, the harem began to decline in importance. As the Ottoman Empire modernized and westernized, the institution came under increasing scrutiny. Critics argued that it was outdated, decadent, and incompatible with modern values. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the harem was gradually dismantled, and its inhabitants were either married off or given pensions. The legacy of the Ottoman harem continues to fascinate and intrigue people today. It has been the subject of countless books, films, and television shows, often perpetuating myths and stereotypes. However, a more nuanced and historically accurate understanding of the harem reveals it to be a complex and multifaceted institution that played a significant role in Ottoman history and culture. It is a reminder of the complexities of power, gender, and social life in a historical context far removed from our own. The stories of the women who lived within its walls, their struggles, their triumphs, and their contributions continue to resonate today, challenging our assumptions and enriching our understanding of the past. Fact 11. The Devshirme System. The Devshirme System, often translated as gathering or collecting, was a unique and controversial institution within the Ottoman Empire. It involved the conscription of young Christian boys from the Balkan provinces, their conversion to Islam, and their training for service in the military or the civil administration. While it undoubtedly played a crucial role in the expansion and consolidation of Ottoman power, the Devshirme system also raises complex ethical questions and remains a subject of intense debate among historians. To truly understand its significance, we must examine its origins, its operation, its impact on both the Ottoman Empire and the Balkan communities from which the boys were taken, and ultimately, the reasons for its eventual decline and abolition. The origins of the Devshirme system can be traced back to the late 14th century, during the reign of Sultan Murad I. As the Ottoman Empire expanded into the Balkans, it became increasingly reliant on non-Muslim soldiers to supplement its existing military forces. Initially, these soldiers were recruited through various means, including voluntary enlistment and the payment of tribute. However, the Divserm system emerged as a more systematic and reliable method of recruitment. The rationale behind the Divserm system was twofold. First, it provided the Ottoman Empire with a constant supply of highly trained and loyal soldiers and administrators. These men, having been raised from a young age within the Ottoman system, were deeply indoctrinated with Islamic values and were fiercely loyal to the Sultan. Second, the Divserm system served as a means of integrating the conquered Balkan provinces into the Ottoman Empire. By taking young boys from these communities and raising them as Ottomans, the empire sought to undermine local loyalties and create a sense of common identity. The selection process for the Divserm was rigorous and carefully controlled. Ottoman officials would travel to Christian villages in the Balkans, typically every few years, and select boys between the ages of 8 and 20. The criteria for selection varied somewhat over time, but generally, the boys chosen were those who were considered to be intelligent, physically fit, and of good character. Only healthy boys were selected. Boys who already learned a trade, orphans, and those who were only sons were usually exempt. The selection process was often arbitrary and subject to abuse, with local officials sometimes accepting bribes to spare certain families or to select boys who were deemed more desirable. Once selected, the boys were taken to Istanbul, where they were circumcised and converted to Islam. They were then placed in either the Asami Oglamler Cadet Boys School or the Enderun School, depending on their aptitude and potential. The Asami Oglamler School provided basic military training and prepared the boys for service in the Janissary Corps, the elite infantry unit of the Ottoman army. The Enderun School, located within the Topkapi Palace, provided a more comprehensive education, including training in Islamic theology, law, literature, and languages. Graduates of the Enderun School were destined for high-ranking positions in the civil administration, serving as governors, judges, and other officials. The Divserm system had a profound impact on both the Ottoman Empire and the Balkan communities from which the boys were taken. On the one hand, it provided the empire with a highly effective military and administrative elite. Many of the most successful Ottoman generals, admirals, and statesmen were products of the Divserm system, including figures such as Grand Vizier Sokolomem Pasha, who served under 3 sultans and played a key role in shaping Ottoman policy during the 16th century. On the other hand, the Divserm system was deeply resented by many Balkan Christians, who viewed it as a form of forced conversion and cultural assimilation. The loss of their sons was a source of immense grief and trauma for many families. There were instances of families attempting to hide their sons or even disfigure them in order to avoid their selection. The Divserm system also contributed to the development of a complex relationship between the Ottoman Empire and its Balkan subjects, characterized by a mixture of fear, resentment, and occasional collaboration. Over time, the Divserm system began to decline in importance. Several factors contributed to this decline, including the increasing availability of other sources of manpower, the growing corruption within the Ottoman administration, and the rising influence of powerful families who sought to secure positions for their own sons. The system became increasingly inefficient and prone to abuse, and its effectiveness as a means of recruitment diminished. In the early 17th century, the Divserm system was formally abolished, although it had already been in decline for some time. The abolition of the Divserm system marked a significant turning point in Ottoman history, signaling a shift away from the reliance on non-Muslims in the military and administration and a greater emphasis on meritocracy and social mobility. The legacy of the Divserm system remains a subject of debate and controversy. Some historians argue that it was a necessary evil that allowed the Ottoman Empire to expand and consolidate its power. Others condemn it as a brutal and unjust system that inflicted immense suffering on countless families. Regardless of one's perspective, it is clear that the Divserm system was a unique and complex institution that played a crucial role in shaping the history of the Ottoman Empire and the Balkans. It is a stark reminder of the complexities of power, the challenges of empire building, and the enduring human cost of historical events. The stories of these boys, torn from their families and thrust into a new world, continue to resonate today, reminding us of the enduring power of identity, loyalty, and the search for belonging. Fact 12. The Janissaries. The Janissaries, Yeni Kari meaning new soldier. The elite infantry corps of the Ottoman army represent one of the most fascinating and complex institutions in Ottoman history. Initially formed in the 14th century from captured Christian boys through the Divserm system, as discussed earlier, the Janissaries evolved over centuries from a highly disciplined and loyal fighting force into a powerful political faction that could make or break sultans. Their story is one of remarkable military achievements, increasing political influence, resistance to reform, and ultimately, a violent and dramatic end. To truly understand the Janissaries, we must examine their origins, their organization and training, their role in Ottoman military successes, their growing political power, their resistance to modernization, and the events leading to their abolition. The origins of the Janissaries can be traced back to the reign of Sultan Murad I in the 14th century. Faced with the need for a standing army that was loyal directly to the Sultan, Murad I established the Janissary Corps, recruiting young Christian boys from the Balkans through the Divserm system. These boys were converted to Islam and subjected to rigorous military training. The organization of the Janissary Corps was highly structured and disciplined. Janissaries lived in barracks and were subject to strict rules and regulations. They were forbidden from marrying or engaging in trade, and their primary focus was on military training and service. The training of the Janissaries was designed to instill unwavering loyalty to the Sultan and to transform them into formidable warriors. They were trained in a variety of weapons and tactics, including swordsmanship, archery, and musket fire. They also received instruction in Islamic theology and Ottoman culture. The Janissaries played a crucial role in many of the Ottoman Empire's military successes. They were known for their bravery, discipline, and fighting skills. They participated in numerous battles and sieges, including the conquests of Constantinople, Belgrade, and Rhodes. Over time, the Janissaries' role began to evolve from solely military to a more political one. Initially, their strict discipline and direct loyalty to the Sultan made them a bulwark against aristocratic factions and internal power struggles. However, as the centuries passed, this loyalty began to erode, and the Janissaries themselves became a powerful political force. Several factors contributed to the Janissaries' growing political power. One factor was their increasing numbers. Over time, the Janissary Corps grew from a few thousand soldiers to tens of thousands. This gave them significant leverage in Ottoman politics. Another factor was the weakening of the Ottoman Sultanate. As the Ottoman Empire faced internal conflicts and external pressures, the sultans became increasingly reliant on the support of the Janissaries. This allowed the Janissaries to demand concessions and exert influence over government policy. The Janissaries used their political power to advance their own interests. They demanded higher pay, better living conditions, and greater privileges. They also intervened in succession disputes, supporting the candidates who were most likely to favor their interests. The Janissaries became notorious for their corruption and their resistance to reform. They opposed any attempts to modernize the Ottoman army or to reduce their power. They also engaged in extortion, bribery, and other illegal activities. By the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the Janissaries had become a major obstacle to progress in the Ottoman Empire. Their resistance to reform and their corruption had weakened the empire's military and economic strength. Sultan Mahmud II recognized that the Janissaries had to be eliminated if the Ottoman Empire was to survive. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II launched a carefully planned operation to abolish the Janissary Corps. He secretly organized a new army, trained in modern European methods, and prepared to confront the Janissaries. On June 15, 1826, the Janissaries revolted in Istanbul, protesting against Mahmud II's reforms. However, the Sultan's new army was ready. The Janissaries were surrounded in their barracks and bombarded with artillery fire. Thousands of Janissaries were killed in the ensuing massacre, which became known as the auspicious incident, Vakoi Harai. The abolition of the Janissary Corps marked a turning point in Ottoman history. It paved the way for the modernization of the Ottoman army and the implementation of other reforms. However, it also marked the end of a unique and influential institution that had played a significant role in shaping the Ottoman Empire for centuries. The Janissary story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of adapting to changing circumstances. Their rise and fall reflect the complex dynamics of Ottoman society, the challenges of maintaining a loyal army, and the often violent consequences of resisting reform. The echoes of their marching feet, the clash of their swords, and the roar of their cannons continue to resonate in the historical memory of the Ottoman Empire, a reminder of the elite warriors who once held the fate of the empire in their hands.